What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'll be talking about the U.S. Men's National Team MLS training camp roster that just dropped. These are for players who are still in the MLS but are out of the playoffs, who will come to this camp and hopefully stay in shape and stay sharp before the World Cup. I don't think that this will be a big help, and I think it's just the same as missing a ton of games, but it's better than nothing, and they kind of had to do something like this. So this team is actually very interesting because you have a mix of current U.S. Men's National Team internationals, as well as a group of U20 players and a couple other prospects we want to take a look at. I think it's very fun to just get a look at the U20 guys who are with the team, and it's good, I guess, to run through the national team players. So let's start out with the U.S. national team players. And I should say before I get started that keep in mind players on teams that are still good and in the playoffs are going to be unavailable. So no Kellen Acosta, no Sean Johnson, no Gideon Zalilam. I haven't given up on him yet. So let's get into it. The first player I want to talk about is Gabriel Slonina, and he is listed as part of the full senior national team, not a U20 player, which is really good to see because I think for me right now, I'd bring Slonina to the World Cup as our third choice goalkeeper. First, keep in mind, it's a third choice goalkeeper. They won't see the field. And honestly, even if they do, the difference between Slonina and honestly Zach Steffen and Sean Johnson, I don't think it's that big. And on top of that, he's such a good prospect that I think it's worth the difference and it's worth the risk to bring him. Keep in mind that you'll have teams, I know the Netherlands are probably going to be bringing a third choice goalkeeper who's a pretty big drop off just so they can have him stop penalties. So it's not unprecedented to bring a third choice goalkeeper for a special purpose. And honestly, if Brad Guzan was available, I'd seriously be considering him for his experience alone. But because of how good of a prospect Slonina is, and the real marginal difference between him and our other third choice options, and keep in mind, we brought him as the only first choice goalkeeper into this tournament. We could have brought JT Murtanowski, Stefan Fry, or Roman Celentano. It speaks volume to the confidence that we have in Slonina, and I would bring him to the World Cup at this moment. Next, we have our center backs. Walker Zimmerman's an obvious choice. While I wouldn't have him start, I think he should still be on the plane. One of the best MLS players, and I think my problem with him is we don't really know how it'll translate to playing at the highest level. I think it's actually pretty good that we brought this U20 group because I'm hoping that, Walker Zimmerman, he will start, we know it. So I'm hoping that, a Caleb Wiley and a Cade Cowell can use their pace as part of the scout team to help Walker prepare for the Welsh team. It's really not much, and I think he'll be coming in completely ice cold, so it's not the best for us right now, but he's going to be starting. And Aaron Long, I think you know my opinions on him. I'm not going to keep dunking on him until the final selection. Maybe we can have this be a really good moment. We can see one of the U20 players outshine him and maybe open Greg's eyes. Maybe if one of our U20 guys like a Cade Cowell or Caleb Wiley just owns him in training. I think Jordan Morris did that to somebody before. So maybe that'll open his eyes, but I'm not going to talk much more about him. DeAndre Yedlin is somebody I'm glad to see on this team. While I wouldn't want him starting or really even seeing the field, I would have him on the plane strictly for his experience. He's been at a World Cup before, and he's been there as a young player, and I think he can really help these players adjust to the new environment. On top of that, I do think he's better than Reggie Cannon and any fullback who's in contention for the team other than Dest, Jedi, or Scally. You could make an argument for guys like Brian Reynolds or Fossey or even John Tolkien, who we'll be talking about later. But I think for guys who aren't close to the team, I think Yedlin might be our fourth choice, and I'd bring him either way strictly because of his experience. Another right back we have is Shaq Moore, and I'll be honest, that worries me a little bit. Not because of Shaq Moore as a player. I think he's fine, and honestly, come the next cycle, if he really shows a ton of improvement, I could see him being part of the team. Though probably not ahead of Dest or Scally, and if one of Brian Reynolds or Fossey's been playing very well in Belgium, take a step forward, probably not. But my thing with Shaq Moore is there's no Sebastian Lletget, there's no Yazzie Zardes on this team. This is clearly only people in real contention for the roster, and if Moore is here, you have to wonder, is Joe Scally not going to be coming? And if Joe Scally's not there, and we get one injury to our fullbacks, we're in big trouble. Then there's Cristan Roldan. I'll be honest, I don't think he should be here. Seemingly the only thing he brings to this team is being a good locker room guy, and I'll be completely honest, I obviously I wasn't in there, but I liked the culture of this team back in like the summer of 2021 more than I do right now, and I don't think he's helping the team out. Yeah, I wouldn't have him be here. And then there's Paul Arriola and Jordan Morris. I don't think I need to talk about them separately. They're both wingers who don't have enough athleticism, don't have a big enough goal threat. I will say that Morris, he got unlucky with injuries. Arriola, he was always bad. But like even back in 2017, I didn't like him. And I mean, is what it is. Wish Morris could have stayed healthy. Wish he would have went abroad sooner, but he didn't. And I don't think either of them should be close to the team. Last player on this team to talk about is Jesus Ferreira, and I'll talk about this more in the next video. I'll be talking more in depth about strikers, but I would personally leave him at home. I don't trust him as a number 9. I doubt that he will score a goal in the World Cup. His goal scoring has been poor for the national team, to say the least, and I think he's naturally a number 10. And I do think that we should be playing with a 10, but even if we do, you have to judge them on the standards of the players that we have. And I look at Giovanni Reyna and Brendan Aronson. Christian Pulisic can play there. And to be honest, for me, with Hayes Ferreira making this 26 roster, it came down to him and Malik Tillman. And while it is impressive what Ferreira's been doing in the MLS, I really like what Malik Tillman brings to the table. And I think, especially when you factor in his potential, I'd be bringing Malik Tillman to the squad. That's not to say I don't think Hayes Ferreira is a good player, and he's certainly promising. Scoring 18 goals in any first division is insane. Like, that has to be valued. And I still think that he can do very well. Like, you'd be blind to not see the talent that he has. But I think he'll have to change positions to exceed at the highest level. There are some snubs from this team, but I don't think any of them are really going to be that missed. Brandon Vasquez probably should have been here, and I wouldn't have him make the team, but like, he's had a really strong season. Like, I think there's an argument to be made that he could positively affect something. Again, I wouldn't bring him over Pefok or Haji Wright or Pepe or Sargent or Ferreira, but like, yeah, I think he had a case. He definitely would have brought him into this camp. Then there's Georgi Milhalovic, who, like, again, I'm not losing sleep over Georgie not being here. Like, I think he's been treated unfairly, but to be honest, like, look at our midfielders and wide options. Like, he's not getting in the team over Weston or Musa or Aronson or De La Torre. I have Malik Tillman over him. It's like, I think that he should have gotten a lot more opportunities than he's got, but I think people are more like, oh, well, he's better than Cristan Roldan and he's better than Sebastian Lletget. He should definitely be in the team. It's like, no, just because he's the best MLS player doesn't mean anything. Like, I think he should have gotten a chance, but I don't think he'd be in the team either way. And DeJuan Jones probably should have been here. Like, he's been doing pretty well as a left back. I know he's a right-footed player and he doesn't fit the system at all, but I don't know, I would have given him a chance at the very least. And now we get to the fun part of the team, which is, weirdly enough, the guys who definitely won't be at a World Cup, but I think actually have a chance to positively affect a World Cup in the future. We have 2 non-U20 players to talk about, John Tolkien and Aiden Morris. John Tolkien has been one of the most promising young players in the MLS this season. He had a great year with the New York Red Bulls and probably is the second best American left back. He won't make the team. He's not listed as a senior player, but it means something that he's in the camp. I mean, Berhalter will probably / hopefully be gone after the World Cup, so him impressing Berhalter doesn't mean much, especially because he's not going to be in the World Cup team. He wasn't listed as a full national team player. But it is still good to see him in this team. I think he's a very promising player who I'm excited for. And Aiden Morris is also good to see. He got really unlucky with an injury that kept him from competing for a spot on the team, but I think next cycle, he's one of the most promising players. I think he could easily replace Kellen Acosta as the backup number 6. He'll be competing with guys like Tanner Tessman and Johnny Cardoso in that position. And I think he's definitely good enough to make that happen. And I'm glad that he got the recognition he's in this camp. Now on to the U20 team. And keep in mind, this is a domestic camp, so none of our players abroad like Alvarado and Cuevas will be here. And Philadelphia, LAFC, NYCFC, and Austin players, at least ones who are first team players, are unavailable. It's foreshadowing. So there's going to be no Paxton Aronson, Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan. And Quinn Sullivan's brother made the U15 national team, so good to see that. And Brandon Craig. Maybe Antonio Leone would have been considered for LAFC, but I think that's the only ones you can really talk about. So into the actual team, in goal we've got Chris Brady and Antonio Carrera. No surprises there. Brady just made his MLS debut with the Chicago Fire, and hopefully he'll be their starter next season. I think that there was arguments that he should have been playing there instead of Slonina. I think Slonina's proven himself, but Chris Brady is still very promising, an amazing shot stopper. His ability with his feet needs to come along, but he's a top-class shot stopper. I think a Matt Turner comparison is very fair. And then Antonio Carrera continues his really good form. He's been doing well for Dallas in the MLS Next Pro, or North Texas, I should say. And maybe he's in line for a debut next season. It's going to be tough, but maybe he can get some cup games or something. At center back, there's Jalen Neal and Marcus Ferreira. I think it was pretty disappointing seasons for both of them. Like, they didn't get a chance in the first team. And you can understand why Cuevas and Alvarado left, but they're still pretty good options. I don't think that they're players who I'm too excited about. I think I prefer Brandon Craig and Justin Che at center back. And then maybe we can try to convince Antonio Leone or Brian Oko, who's probably going to stick with Switzerland, but maybe we can try. But still, it's good to see them there. I think Jalen Neal's the one I'm higher on at the moment. I think LA Galaxy's higher on him as well. But we have to see him play a bit more next year, and I hope he can break into the first team, and if not, he's probably got to go. At fullback is Caleb Wiley and Caden Pierre. It's a good sign that Atlanta United let Caleb Wiley come to this. You could have easily seen them say, like, oh, he just finished the season, we need to give him an immediate rest. So hopefully this bodes well for the U20 World Cup, because Atlanta famously don't release players, and it's really exciting to see Wiley. I think he honestly has a decent chance to affect in the next World Cup qualifying cycle, more down to the lack of left backs than anything, but he's looking pretty promising. He's had a couple good moments for Atlanta, and especially in the U20 group, I thought he was outperforming Jonathan Gomez, and I made an argument that we could bring Jonathan Gomez to this World Cup. So, like, Caleb Wiley is looking very good, and Caden Pierre is interesting to see him. We do have Mauricio Cuevas abroad, but it's interesting to see that he passed Michael Holiday on the depth chart, and hopefully this bodes well for him. I mean, we could use more fullbacks in the U20 team. I can't see him really passing Cuevas, and we have so many good left backs that he probably won't make the full U20 World Cup roster, but it's good to see him back in the team. Then moving into the sixth, we've got Daniel Edelman and Danny Leyva there. I think Edelman's taking some big steps forward since becoming a starter in New York, and I'm pretty excited about his future now. I think that he's going to do a very good job for us in that sixth position for the U20 World Cup. And Daniel Leyva has been playing very well for Seattle, and I think he deserved that recall to the group. At the very least, get a look in for the camp, and maybe if he performs well here, you can see him at the U20 World Cup, because he's been doing very well. I think you have to consider him and Jack McGlynn for the same role, because both of them have been playing very well in the MLS this season. At the 8th, there's Brian Gutierrez and Nico Teixeira. Gutierrez has taken some big steps forward while playing with Chicago, and Teixeira has shown to be an extremely promising player. He's only a 2005, and he's in this group, one of two players like that, and you have to be excited about him. I thought that he really fit in well at the U20 CONCACAF tournament, despite playing 2 years up. So someone who's really promising and might be the star of the next U20 cycle. And Gutierrez has looked good for Chicago. Seems to be a very promising player. I think he's taken steps forward, and I think playing under Shaqiri has really helped him. And he's starting to kind of distinguish himself from a Paxton Harrison and a Caden Clark. I thought he was looking very good in the final third, and he could be exciting. And while I mentioned him, Clark is unavailable as he's returning to Germany. He was only in New York on a loan. And Diego Luna is currently injured, so he's uninvolved. Onto the attack, there's Cade Cowell, who is an option on the wing as well. Just the physical force in the attack, but I'm not sure he's taking the steps forward that I really would have liked to see him do this year. His technical ability is still pretty far behind the rest of the U20 group, though it probably fits in with the senior national team one. And, well, either way, I think it's good to see him for the scout team, and just because of his physical traits, you have to consider him as a prospect, but I think I would rather see someone like a Quinn Sullivan start over him, simply due to his technical ability, alongside the finishing that we know Cal has. Then strictly up front, there's Jackson Hopkins. And again, I don't really think he's at the level of the rest of the U20 players, but Wayne Rooney clearly rates him. He's got some good technical ability. Maybe like Hayes Ferreira, he should be playing in a bit of like a secondary striker role. So I can understand why Berhalter wants him in this group. But, we'll have to see him like really take a step forward in the MLS to really be excited about him. And lastly, there's Marcus Zambrano Delgado, the next Philadelphia Union homegrown star. He is not a first-team player yet, but I think that contract is coming sooner rather than later. And he's a top striker prospect. I think I'd say similar to like a young Josh Sargent in that he can do anything. He can score, combine, press. Like, he has every trait that you need. Obviously, the question is how does that translate to a professional level? But the fact that he was brought into a senior national team camp while having never attended a U20 group, like he's been with the U19s, but not like a full U20 camp, like that means a ton. And I think he's an extremely promising prospect who I'm excited to talk about. And yeah, that's the team right now. It's kind of funny how it's like, okay, we've got these senior national team players, but the U20 guys, I'm really excited about them. I don't know. It's kind of funny to talk about, especially because like the national team players like are kind of what you want the U20 guys to reach eventually. But I don't know. I'm more excited about the prospect of Caleb Wiley getting some time with the senior group than having to see Walker Zimmerman at the World Cup. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But yeah, hopefully this can help some players prepare a bit. I think the main worry is that players will impress too much, and he's done this before. Remember the MLS only camp last last winter got Brooks Lennon in the team over Joe Scally, which, Jesus God, I think that there's a very good chance that happens again with Shaq Moore. Hopefully it will happen with Gabriel Slonina, where we'll convince Berhalter that he makes the team, though he would probably make it over Ethan Horvath. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, somebody to keep tabs on, but overall it's not going to affect the World Cup too much. We're still going to have Pulisic starting, we're going to have West McKennie in the midfield, like, Walker Zimmerman's the only guy who's going to be a start. Oh, well, Hayes Ferreira as well, probably. But it's what it is. Hopefully they can do well. Hopefully it does prepare them, because we want all of these players to be at their best for the World Cup. And yeah, that's all I'll talk about right now. See ya.